The crystal chandelier in Mom's dining room cast perfect light across the mahogany table where my family had gathered for our monthly dinner. I adjusted my simple black sweater, feeling underdressed among my relatives' designer outfits and sparkling jewelry. My older brother David was describing his latest real estate acquisition in explicit detail, gesturing with his gold Rolex while my sister Michelle showed off her new Cartier bracelet to anyone who would admire it. Another successful quarter, Dad announced proudly, raising his wine glass filled with his precious 1995 Bordeaux. The family businesses are thriving, the investments are paying off handsomely, and everyone's contributing meaningfully to our legacy. His eyes swept around the table with satisfaction before lingering disapprovingly on me. Well, almost everyone is contributing. I kept eating my salmon quietly, long accustomed to these pointed comments that hung in the air like smoke. At 28, I was the family disappointment who still lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment downtown and worked at what they considered a dead-end job, in financial consulting. My Honda Civic looked pathetic next to their collection of Mercedes and BMWs. What they didn't know was that my small consulting firm was actually the front for something much larger and more sophisticated. Speaking of contributions, Michelle said, her voice dripping with false sisterly concern as she leaned forward conspiratorially, have you thought seriously about what you're going to do long-term? You can't keep depending on the family trust distributions forever like some kind of permanent welfare recipient. Those monthly payments aren't sustainable indefinitely, David added, cutting his steak with aggressive precision, the knife scraping against the china. Especially when you're not bringing anything meaningful to the table or showing any ambition whatsoever. Mom dabbed her lips with her monogrammed linen napkin, preparing for what I could sense was a carefully coordinated family intervention. The way they exchanged glances told me this conversation had been planned in advance. We've been discussing your situation extensively as a family, she said with the tone she used when delivering ultimatums, and we've made a unanimous decision about your future. The room went quiet except for the soft classical music playing in the background and the gentle clink of silverware against plates. Dad leaned forward across the table, his expression stern and paternal. We're cutting you off completely, he announced with finality. No more monthly distributions from the family trust. No more financial support of any kind. It's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet and make something of yourself like your siblings have. This is for your own good, Michelle said with barely concealed satisfaction, though her smile suggested she was thoroughly enjoying this moment of family superiority. You need real motivation to become successful like the rest of us. We've carried you long enough, David chimed in, nodding sagely. Time to sink or swim in the real world. I set down my fork deliberately and reached for my laptop bag, pulling out my MacBook Pro. The family watched with growing confusion and irritation as I opened it calmly and logged into my private wealth management account through the secure portal. What exactly are you doing? Mom asked, irritation creeping into her voice. We're having a serious family discussion here. I turned the screen toward them without saying a word. The dashboard displayed my personal net worth in large, bold numbers that seemed to glow on the screen. $487,623,940. The room fell completely silent. Dad's wine glass froze halfway to his lips, suspended in time. Michelle's mouth dropped open in shock. David stopped chewing mid-bite, his fork suspended in the air. I think I'll manage just fine, I said calmly, closing the laptop with a soft click. Before anyone could formulate a response or question what they'd just seen, there was a firm knock at the front door that echoed through the house. Mom's housekeeper appeared in the dining room doorway, looking slightly flustered. Excuse me, Mrs. Thompson, but there's a gentleman here to see Miss Sarah. He says he's from Whitmore and Associates and that it's quite urgent regarding trust matters. Perfect timing, I thought with internal satisfaction. I nodded to the housekeeper. Please show him in. A distinguished man in an impeccably tailored Armani suit entered the dining room, carrying a premium leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. His silver hair was perfectly styled and his presence commanded immediate respect. Miss Thompson, he said with a slight bow, I sincerely apologize for interrupting your family dinner, but we have several urgent matters regarding the quarterly trust restructuring that require your immediate attention and signature. I'm sorry, but who exactly are you? Dad demanded, his voice carrying the authority he was accustomed to wielding in business situations. James Whitmore, senior managing partner at Whitmore and Associates. The man replied professionally, extending an expensive business card. We handle Ms. Thompson's comprehensive estate planning, trust management and wealth preservation strategies. He opened his briefcase with practiced precision and pulled out several thick legal documents bound in blue covers. Sarah, the paperwork for transferring the additional offshore assets into your primary control structure is ready for your review and signature. Additional offshore assets? Mom whispered, her voice barely audible. Mr. Whitmore looked around at the confused and increasingly pale faces surrounding the table. I naturally assumed you were all fully aware that Sarah has been the primary beneficiary and sole controlling trustee of the Thompson Family Trust since her 25th birthday, as mandated by the original trust documents. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. That's completely impossible, David said weakly, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Dad has always controlled the family trust. He makes all the financial decisions. Mr. Whitmore adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and pulled out a thick folder. I'm afraid that's entirely incorrect, Mr. Thompson. Your grandfather's will was extraordinarily specific and legally ironclad. Upon Sarah's 25th birthday, complete and total control of the trust, including all real estate holdings, investment portfolios, business interests and liquid assets, transferred permanently to her as the designated successor trustee. I watched my family's faces carefully as the reality began to sink in like water through sand. The monthly distributions you all receive and depend on? Every single payment comes from the trust. My trust. This is absolutely ridiculous, Michelle snapped, but her voice cracked and lacked its usual confident bite. We would have been informed about something this monumentally important to the family. Mr. Whitmore pulled out another meticulously organized document from his briefcase. Here's a certified copy of your grandfather's original will, filed with the probate court in 1987. Section 12. Subsection A clearly states that the youngest grandchild would inherit full fiduciary control upon reaching 25, with the understanding that they would continue supporting family members at their complete discretion. Dad lunged forward and grabbed the document with shaking hands, his eyes scanning frantically. His face grew progressively paler as he read. This can't possibly be legal. There must be some kind of mistake. It's been completely legal and binding for 3 years now, I said quietly, my voice steady and calm. I've been personally managing all of your finances, approving every single distribution, and overseeing all family business operations since June 2021. Did you really think your investment returns and business successes were just lucky coincidences? My phone buzzed with an encrypted message from my wealth management team. I glanced at it and allowed myself a small smile. Speaking of which, I need to make some important decisions about next month's distribution schedule. I looked at each family member in turn, watching their growing panic. David, your monthly allowance of $45,000. Michelle, yours is $38,000. Mom and Dad, your joint distribution totals $62,000 monthly. The specific numbers hung in the air like a financial death sentence that no one could escape. You're bluffing, Michelle said desperately, but her voice was thin and unconvincing. I pulled out my phone and opened the secure trust management application, its interface displaying real-time account balances and pending transactions. Would you like me to demonstrate? I can approve or deny any distribution with a simple biometric scan and password. The color drained completely from Michelle's face as the reality hit her. Wait just 1 minute, Dad said, standing up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Even if this fantastical story is somehow true, we raised you. We provided for you your entire life. You owe us everything. I owe you. I interrupted calmly, though I could feel the fire building in my chest. Let me clarify something for all of you. I've been paying the mortgage on this house for 3 years. Your car payments, your country club memberships, your luxury vacation homes, your children's private school tuitions, absolutely all of it comes from the trust that I control. Mr. Whitmore nodded gravely. The detailed financial records show approximately $2.7 million in family support distributed annually under Sarah's direct authority and personal approval. Mom's expensive jewelry suddenly felt like chains around her neck. But surely the family businesses generate their own revenue. Are held entirely in trust, I finished her sentence. The restaurant chain, the real estate development company, the private investment firm, all of them report directly to me as the primary shareholder through the trust structure. Every major business decision requires my signature. David's face had transformed from pale to an alarming shade of gray. My real estate deals, my investment partnerships, funded exclusively by trust loans that I personally approved, I confirmed matter-of-factly. Your credit lines are backed entirely by trust assets. Your business partnerships are guaranteed by my signature on personal liability documents. The room seemed to spin with the devastating weight of 3 years of completely reversed reality. Everything they thought they knew about their financial security, their independence, their success was crumbling like a house of cards in a hurricane. This doesn't change anything fundamental, Dad said desperately, grasping for any remaining authority. Family is family, blood is blood. You wouldn't actually cut us off. You're not that cruel. I closed my laptop slowly and stood up from my chair. You're absolutely right about one thing. I wouldn't cut off family. I paused deliberately, watching hope flicker desperately in their eyes like dying candles. But I might seriously reconsider the monthly amounts. $45,000 seems rather excessive for someone who, according to tonight's conversation, contributes absolutely nothing to the family legacy. David's carefully constructed confident facade finally cracked completely like broken glass. Sarah, please, we didn't know the real situation. We had no idea. You didn't know because you never bothered to ask, I said, picking up my laptop bag with deliberate calm. You automatically assumed I was the failure, the disappointment, the family burden who needed your charity. You never once considered that maybe I was the one taking care of all of you. Michelle's perfectly manicured hand trembled violently as she reached for her wine glass. What happens to us now? What are you planning to do? Another knock at the door interrupted the tense standoff. This time, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive business suit entered, carrying a tablet and several manila folders thick with documents. Ms. Thompson, she said professionally. I'm Patricia Chen from First National Trust Services. You requested the emergency comprehensive account review for all family members. Perfect timing as always, Patricia, I said with satisfaction. Please show my family the current detailed status of their personal accounts. Patricia opened her tablet with practiced efficiency and began reading from the screen. Certainly. Mr. David Thompson, your personal checking and savings accounts show a combined balance of exactly $847. However, your monthly expenses average $12,400, with every penny above your actual income supplemented by trust distributions. David's face went completely ashen. That's not possible. I have substantial investments, my real estate business. Your investment accounts are held entirely in trust under Ms. Sarah Thompson's name, Patricia continued without emotion. She maintains sole signature authority on all transactions, withdrawals, and reinvestments. She swiped to the next screen. Ms. Michelle Thompson, your personal accounts show a balance of $1,203, while your monthly expenses total $9,600, also entirely trust supplemented. Michelle's hands were visibly shaking now, her expensive manicure catching the light as she gripped her napkin. But my boutique generates substantial profits. Your boutique lease is personally guaranteed by the trust, Patricia said matter-of-factly, consulting her tablet. As are your inventory purchases, operational expenses, employee salaries, and business insurance. Without trust backing, the business would cease operations within 30 days. Dad tried desperately to interrupt, his voice rising. This is completely absurd. I built this family's wealth from nothing. I made every important business decision. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, Patricia continued relentlessly, your joint accounts show a balance of $2,156. Your combined monthly expenses total $18,900. Your home mortgage, country club memberships, luxury car payments, and household staff salaries are all trust obligations requiring monthly approval. The room had gone completely silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the sound of heavy breathing from increasingly panicked family members. Now then, I said, my voice remaining perfectly calm and controlled, let's discuss this cutting-off decision you made so confidently 15 minutes ago. David was the first to completely crack under the pressure. Sarah, listen to me, we obviously didn't understand the complete situation. We would never actually. Never what exactly? I asked coolly. Never try to manipulate someone you believed was financially dependent on your charity? Never use money as a weapon against a family member you considered weak. Michelle was frantically scrolling through her banking app on her phone, her face growing more horrified by the second. My bank application. It's showing dozens of pending transactions that require approval. Those would be your automatic credit card payments, I explained patiently. They're scheduled for automatic approval from the trust account every month. Unless, of course, I decide to modify that arrangement. You wouldn't dare, she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. I pulled out my phone and opened the comprehensive trust management application, its sophisticated interface displaying real-time financial data. David, Michelle, would you like to observe how remarkably easy it is to modify distribution schedules and automatic payment approvals? Sarah, please, I'm begging you, Mom pleaded, her composure finally cracking completely. We made a terrible mistake. We're genuinely sorry. Sorry for attempting to cut me off? I asked. Or sorry that you were caught completely depending on the person you were dismissing as worthless? Dad was visibly sweating now despite the air conditioning. What do you want from us? What are your demands? Want? I smiled for the first time that evening. I want exactly what you just offered me so generously. Complete independence. Total self-reliance. Standing entirely on your own 2 feet without any financial assistance. Patricia cleared her throat professionally. Ms. Thompson, shall I implement the revised distribution schedule we discussed in our meeting yesterday? What revised schedule? David asked frantically, panic evident in every word. Well, I said thoughtfully, since you're all so deeply concerned about accountability and meaningful contribution to the family, I thought we should implement a comprehensive performance-based system. Monthly financial reviews, contribution assessments, detailed spending reports and profitability requirements. That's completely reasonable, Mom said desperately, grasping at any lifeline.